Yes, guys, what's happening? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to another live stream. It feels like a while since you've been live. Not too much has been going on with Chelsea. Very minimal news, really. But actually, today, a few bits have come out, a few articles, one from Matt Law, Nizar Kinsella as well, covering various topics and quite interesting. So we're going to get stuck into some of those. And George, great to have you here as always, mate. Let's get straight into it. Chelsea's midfield. Obviously, it's well known that N'Golo Kante and Jorginho both out of contract at the end of the season. Jorginho talks haven't really been opened at all. Kante has obviously turned down a 2+1. He wants a 3+1. Not really sure what's going to happen with that one. Chelsea clearly targeting midfield, obviously with the likes of Edson Alvarez from Ajax. That was a bid that went in at deadline day. Whether Graham Potter is going to pursue that or not remains to be seen, but midfield is a clear priority. And a piece in the Telegraph today by Matt Law stating that Chelsea, Boehly is basically trying to get to the head of the queue in regards to Jude Bellingham. I'm a massive Jude Bellingham fan. I think he's a top-class baller. 19 years of age, doing really well for himself at Borussia Dortmund. Did really well for England in the 2 games just now. Should be a shoo-in for the World Cup. But as you can imagine, mate, there's a lot of suitors for his name. Liverpool, City, Real Madrid think they're at the front of the queue. But Boehly is trying to muscle his way in. We've seen he's not afraid to put big money on the table for players. Mate, firstly, thoughts on Jude Bellingham? And what would you like him at Chelsea, and what do you think the chances are? I mean, I know this is quite an early story to come out with it being next summer in mind, but deals like this don't just happen. They're probably setting the wheels in motion fairly soon, you'd imagine. Oh, you there, mate? Oh, I don't know what's happened to George. He's gone. I'll be back in a sec. But yeah, you'd imagine, it is early doors to talk about Jude Bellingham. But at the same time, transfers like this, you've got to have planning. It's a lot of money potentially, a lot of people to speak to, intermediaries, agents, etc. So, it's certainly interesting. And yeah, I wouldn't say Chelsea are at the front of the queue by any means whatsoever. I think it's clear that the likes of Real Madrid, possibly even Liverpool, Man City in there as well, supposedly Erling Haaland. Yeah, mate, so I was just asking you about Jude Bellingham. I know I was just saying, I know it's early to be talking about a move for next summer, but the piece is out today. Todd Boehly trying to muscle his way into the queue. Madrid and Liverpool kind of at the head of the queue, possibly Man City as well. Apparently, Erling Haaland's kind of told Jude Bellingham that he'd like him to join him at City next summer, having been teammates at Borussia Dortmund. It's a lot of money. It'd be £100+ million, you would imagine. Dortmund are in no need to sell. Bellingham's, I think, got a contract for at least another couple of years. Firstly, mate, thoughts on Jude Bellingham, and is this the kind of profile of midfield player that Chelsea should be going for? I mean, I love him. I think he'd be class, but again, it's going to be hard to get this one over the line, if at all.
Yeah, I think we're clutching at straws if we think that Chelsea are going to be able to do, as you say, jump the queue in front of those big names on screen. It's a lot of money, but as you've said, Chelsea aren't shy of a bob or two, and obviously the owner is not afraid to put his money where his mouth is. And Jude Bellingham is a class prospect. I call him prospect because I still think there's a lot to see. Yes, he's a regular for Borussia Dortmund, and certainly pushing his way in the England setup now. He's an exciting midfielder. There's no question about his ability. And I think for an aspiring person who wants to change the mold at Chelsea, like Potter, I think he ticks all the boxes in terms of what Chelsea are trying to achieve with longevity and a team that can go the distance in the next 5-6 years. And we constantly talk about closing the gap, and sometimes we need to change the mold of bringing in ready-made players and investing in not just now, but for the tomorrow. And he's certainly one that is more than ready to take that platform for Chelsea.
Yeah, I mean, how would you see him fitting in? I mean, obviously here, another excerpt from the article. Boehly's already tried to make inroads in the Bellingham camp, despite being told Real Madrid and Liverpool are ahead of Chelsea. Boehly and Clearlake are ready to splash more cash, with midfield one of the priorities. Rice also remains on the club's radar. It's keen that the next big area, obviously, that needs investment is midfield. As I said, Kante and Jorginho could both leave. There could be other outgoings there as well as we look to revamp the midfield, possibly go into a 3-man midfield if we don't stick with a back five. You know, we're not really sure what's going on, but it's clear that they want to spend big on at least one midfielder of a younger age profile. I mean, Declan Rice, again, the club retains interest in him. I mean, out of the two, mate, I almost feel that Declan Rice, Chelsea have almost got kind of a free run at him. You don't really hear any other clubs that are particularly interested in him, and I couldn't really envisage him going anywhere else. Do you always feel that Chelsea have got a free run at Declan Rice? I mean, the article goes on to state that Chelsea were warned off making a bid for Declan Rice this summer by West Ham, but may well test their resolve next summer. I mean, I mean, it's greedy to want both, but I mean, you'd expect Declan Rice to be a lot more, easier to get than Jude Bellingham.
Yeah, just because I think with the affiliation that Declan Rice has, it's very publicly known that he's best mates with Mason Mount, who's obviously a Chelsea player. I don't know why there's not as much interest in Declan Rice. I mean, it remains to be seen. Perhaps that might increase as I think people are waiting for this season to finish, because it's fairly obvious that West Ham did fend a lot of clubs off, saying that he wanted to stay another season. He's the club captain, with Mark Noble, hanging up his boots as a club captain. I think Rice is now going to fill in that role. But there's no doubt in my mind that Rice is going to move on to bigger and better things. Certainly, if not next year, the year after. I think he's got to take that window of opportunity, being a class player that he is. And I think you're right. I think Chelsea do have a bit of a free run at him. I think Bellingham's going to be a lot harder to get. It's almost impossible to get both in one window for me. But you're right. I think Chelsea next season, I think really do need to revamp that midfield and go twofold. I think the rest of it, perhaps another striker, perhaps, maybe. But I think really the midfield is an integral part of Potter's plans for the future. And we need to make statements.
Well, I mean, it's the one area of the squad that, despite all the investment this summer and over the years, we haven't invested in a central midfield player arguably since N'Golo Kante arrived at the club. I mean, obviously, I know we bought Kovacic, but that was almost forced upon us because of the transfer ban. Whether we would have bought him or not, if we didn't have that transfer ban, remains to be seen, because his loan spell, if I'm being honest, was dog shit, because it was. But yeah, midfield has been chronically underinvested in, and we're coming to the end now of Kante and Jorginho, possibly both. And we need to freshen it up. We need some younger legs in there. Yes, I know we've got Conor Gallagher. I know we've got Loftus-Cheek, but we haven't really got anyone in midfield that is kind of a holding midfield profile, or like a box-to-box player like a Jude Bellingham. I mean, out of the two, mate, we would presume that, I mean, never say never in football, but it would be ridiculous if we got both. I can't imagine that. But out of the two, if you had to pick one, who would you rather have? I'm not saying who's better, but who do you think would suit Chelsea better and would be more useful for the midfield out of Rice and Bellingham?
Bloody hell, that's a tough question.
It's tough, isn't it?
Do you know what? I probably would go Bellingham. The reason for that, I think Rice would probably fit in a little easier, but sometimes you've got to go out of the comfort zone. I think there's something about Bellingham that he's got more to offer.
Pops up with a goal as well. He's more box to box than Rice is.
I think he's a bit more adaptable to changes in systems than perhaps Rice is. So tough though, because I think Rice would be like such a great shoe-in for what we need. A bit more energy in that position, and obviously just better, but a like-for-like switch if we lost Jorginho and Kante just fitting in that holding role. But I just think Bellingham more energy, a bit of an unknown quantity, which I like. I think we've seen Rice's best levels. I think he's reached his ceiling. I mean, maybe that's
you don't think there's any more room for Rice to progress as a player? He's only 22, 23 then?
Of course there is. But from what I've seen, I think we know what Rice's game is. I don't think he drastically improves, let's say, his pace or his tackling ability.
No, maybe not.
Whereas there's something about Bellingham that we're still unsure of, which I think I like. I like the fact that there's a bit more to see from him. He almost reminds me of a young Oxlade-Chamberlain, when people just weren't sure whether he was going to really take off or be another player that people don't talk about. And Oxlade-Chamberlain did have a couple of really good years where people were talking highly of him. Obviously, that injuries have cost him really. But Bellingham, just there's just that risk element
something
with him that I
about
like.
him. There's something about him, isn't it?
Something about him. I can't put my finger on it. It's more of a feeling.
I'm not saying that I wouldn't want Declan Rice, but Jude Bellingham he's just a phenomenal player. You know, and the fact that, you know, he's got, obviously he doesn't have Premier League experience, but I know that can be important. But I think someone like Bellingham, I don't really think, you know, when you're dealing with kind of special players, that I don't think the league experience is that relevant when you're talking about signing from the top draw of players.
Yeah.
He's obviously got Champions League experience. He's an England international. Obviously, Rice is an England international. Hasn't played Champions League, but obviously he's played Europa League. I know there's a bit of a step up, but Rice has obviously got European football experience as well. There's not much in it, and I wouldn't be too fussed if it was one way or the other. I mean, do you expect Chelsea to wait till the summer, or do you think we could invest in midfield as early as January? Reports saying that, you know, we could go back in for Edson Alvarez, Moise Caicedo at Brighton as well. I mean, reports from reliable sources saying that, you know, to expect bids for potentially a couple of Brighton players over the next window or two. What do you think, mate? Do you expect the club to be active in January? I know it's still only kind of end of September, October this weekend. But, you know, the wheels are in motion for these kind of things. I mean, if there will be money to spend in January, Boehly'S said that, you know, Potter's going to be his first window. I think if there's business to be done, Chelsea will look to do it.
Yeah, and I think Potter needs time to assess the situation, and the expectations are slightly probably lowered now that Tuchel's gone, and Potter's got time now to rejuvenate the tools that he's got. So he needs to assess and have time. I think it sounds a bit, you know, classic answer, but it all depends on the situation. You know, if we're in January and we're sitting quite comfortable in that top 4 position, I don't think Potter needs to drastically change anything. He might bring in a few loose ends just to, you know, create depth in the squad and options, but it's very hard to get a permanent signing in January that's going to be, you know, for the long term. And I think we've got a much clearer picture when Potter's had a whole kind of, well, 3/4 of a season to really establish who he likes, who he doesn't like, and then in the summer go hard when you've got a full preseason. I think it's sometimes, yes, there have been gems that come in January and hit the ground running.
We've had Anelka in the past, Gary Cahill, January signings. I mean, I don't know. Like, if it's me, you know, like, if I'm being honest, if it's clear that in January, you know, Kante and Jorginho, one or two, are not going to sign a new contract, I wouldn't be against selling one of them to try and get
in
some
January.
money. Well, to try and get some money for them. We're going to get nothing for them, and they're free to sign a pre-contract in January with foreign clubs. So, I mean, if there's a situation where we could potentially get Edson Alvarez in January, then I wouldn't like, you know, be that annoyed at like if we sold one of those midfield players. Because at the end of the day, right now, we're looking at losing 2 players for nothing. I'm not saying we're going to get a lot of money for them. We would get a lot of money, particularly at their ages now. You might get 50, 60 million for them combined. Maybe that's a little bit overestimate there, but, you know, we're not talking a lot of money for the both of them. So you don't want to be another situation where we lost 2 centre-backs on a free last summer and then lose 2 of our kind of best 3 midfield, 2 of our starting midfield players for free this summer. So I think if it's possible to, you know, bring someone in January, or maybe sell one of those guys to get some money, I think in January it's pretty clear. I mean, I know stuff changes in football, but I think Jorginho would have made his mind up by January whether he wants to stay at the club or not, and likewise with Kante. I think they'll know if an agreement is close or not. So I wouldn't be dead against it. But again, I think midfield would be the priority. I don't really look at any other areas of the squad and think we desperately need something. Maybe centre forward, but that's notoriously difficult to do in January. So I'd expect maybe midfield. I mean, George, what do you think of the Brighton links? I mean, I do like Moise Caicedo. I think he's a very good player. But again, does it worry? I mean, we've seen it with Erik ten Hag at Manchester United. Go back to sort of what he knows, signing players that he was that were with him at Ajax. Obviously using the Dutch league with Malacia as well. How do you feel about kind of Potter going back to Brighton and taking a couple of players, perhaps in Moise Caicedo or even Trossard, who there's been links as well?
You have to expect it because it's what Potter wants, the style he wants to play, and he knows that he can trust certain players within the system that he wants to play, which is going to be transferred to a different level at Chelsea with different expectations. But for a quick fix and for players that he can trust on board straight away, he is going to go back to the old tried and tested, who, you know, individuals that he know can perform in certain systems. And that's just the way of the world. I don't like it personally. I think it's a little bit safe. But there is an opportunity there for those players where they can improve and they can make, certainly from a business perspective, you can have a hell of a resale value. He's done it, I know the scouting of Cucurella is one example that has ended up at Chelsea, who Brighton managed to source for almost nothing. So yeah, I'm not a huge fan of it, but yeah, Caicedo is a good player, mate, and obviously he's done. We all know that Potter did a really above average job with Brighton with those players. So there's no reason why those players couldn't work if they just made the step up at Chelsea.
Yeah, no, I think it makes sense, and it could be smart business. Again, there's nothing wrong with managers going back to players that they know. Could they make the step up to play for a top side like Chelsea? There's only one way to find out. I mean, they're proving that they're more than good enough to play for Brighton and probably good enough to play at a higher level. Yes, it would represent a little bit of a gamble, but at the end of the day, you've got to take a few gambles. And I think signing from within the Premier League makes sense. We've done it this summer with quite a few players, and I think it's gonna work out well. So I wouldn't be personally against it, but I do get what you mean. Like I know managers like to go with what they know, but you've also got to think, right, well, maybe we need to move on. Maybe there's a better way of approaching this rather than just kind of signing players that because you've worked with them. They've got to be the right fit as well. I think the right character. I think Graham Potter, one of the big things was he's got like a degree in emotional intelligence or something. So I think the kind of character you are is a big thing for him as well. And I think we've gone on about it before, how perhaps in the past, we've signed players that are good, but the character's not right, and it hasn't worked out. So I think that's a big thing to get right. But I mean, moving away from sort of midfield targets, just briefly, George, two former Chelsea midfield players have both retired in the last couple of days. John Obi Mikel and Ramirez. Ramirez announcing his retirement today, Mikel announcing his yesterday. Both great players for Chelsea, won a lot. I think both really underrated as well. What were your thoughts on Mikel and Ramirez? Obviously, Mikel first, mate. He was phenomenal in that 2012 Champions League final. He's someone that Mourinho used to like to bring on to shut a game out. You knew it was when he saw Mikel about to come on, the game was done. What were your thoughts on those two players? I think they've done so much for the club. I think they're massively underrated, perhaps a little bit underappreciated as well.
100% underappreciated. There's that fantastic story, isn't there? Mikel turning up to Old Trafford. Well, not Old Trafford. But,
mate, he was in the Man United shirt.
He was training. He
had photos in the shirt, hadn't he? I don't know how it was allowed to happen. We have to. They went into some sort of legal thing. I think we had to pay compensation, didn't we?
Yeah, he went. I think he had a training session. Sir Alex Ferguson really rated him, and then jogged on. And it happened with Willian as well, of course. Possibly, on the
I think he did a medical at Spurs.
Yeah, so I think he's an unsung hero. He's he won a lot at Chelsea. Unfortunately, at a time where our midfield was so strong that perhaps he didn't get the opportunities that maybe at another club he would have. But he just doesn't get talked about, does he? But he was so first. I mean, there were some games, when we were completely stretched in Mourinho's, I think, third year, where he played some games at centre back. I mean, it just seemed like a nice guy, friendly character, so versatile. And then you go on to Ramirez. I mean, we will never forget the chip in the new camp.
The chip. Again, another guy who was fucking good, Ramirez.
Yeah, and I'm not a huge fan of Brazilian players in general, and I know that's there's been a lots of amazing Brazilian players, but we had Oscar, and that was for me just a bit of a wishy-washy type player. But Ramirez, just some of the goals he scored. There was one against Man City as well, where he just completely just in the box just.
But he was quite versatile as well. He could kind of play as a box-to-box midfield player, but sometimes also, he'd play kind of on like I think wide right or wide left. Can't remember now because it's been a while since he played for us. But he'd also play kind of wide in an attacking position as well if we were looking to go a little bit more defensively. Almost similar to what Sir Alex used to do with Park Ji-sung, like kind of similar to that situation, but. Both massively underappreciated, and it's mad now. You feel, having watched these guys, you feel a bit old now when you sort of hear these players retiring. You're like, fuck, you wasn't watching them that long ago, and now they've retired. It's mad. And you got obviously like a next generation coming through, but yeah, two top midfield players for Chelsea, both obviously calling time on on their careers. But yeah, I mean, obviously, all the best to them. I mean, mate, I just wanted to come back to transfers quickly. I want to talk about goalkeeping situation. Now, I know we've spoken about this at length. Obviously, Graham Potter's got a decision to make. Obviously, he picked Kepa for the Champions League because he had to. Obviously, Crystal Palace this weekend remains to be seen what he does. We'll get into that in more detail in the match preview on Friday. But we've thought this for a while, and Nazar Kinsella reporting today that Chelsea have an idea to target goalkeepers in the future, but have made no contact with Atletico Madrid's Jan Oblak, who has interest from Tottenham and Man United for next summer. George, do you agree that, I mean, the two current goalkeepers we've got two good goalkeepers. You know, both have got their faults, but, you know, we're by no means got shit goalkeepers. We have got two decent ones to pick from. But we're both of the opinion that if Chelsea are going to contend, looking to win Premier League titles, we're unlikely to win a Premier League realistically with either of the goalkeepers that we've got. Do you think that's a fair assumption?
Yeah, completely agree. I think it's been an area that we've had so much. We've been very fortuitous in recent years with even going far back as Kudicini, Petr Cech, Courtois,
Cech, yeah.
You know, and it is a fundamental. I mean, any Premier League winner will tell you that, you know, the goalkeepers will save you 10, 12 points a season. And at the moment, those goalkeepers aren't doing it. The very fact that we're not sure who starts in games anymore probably tells you the whole story, that we're just not confident, and both have their errors. It's a bit like the England number one situation at the moment, where we're not quite sure. They all have their great attributes, you know, Mendy being, you know, fantastic reach, very physical, Kepa a bit better with his distribution, probably a better shot stopper with reflexes, but both of them have serious errors in their game, and they just don't scream title winning goalkeepers. Oblak certainly is a goalkeeper who fits that mold for me. But again, we're in a difficult situation because Mendy's not long been at the club.
Yeah.
But you know, we're probably going to have to make do until the summer, really.
Oh yeah, for sure, until the summer. But it's as you say, mate, it's a big decision to make, because ultimately Mendy, even in the short amount of time he's been there, he has done very well for us. I know this season's been a bit shaky, but he played a big part in obviously winning the Champions League and whatnot. He's obviously won the AFCON with Senegal. You know, he's played a big part in a lot of Chelsea's major recent success, but obviously there are clear deficiencies there. The type of football that Graham Potter likes to play, he likes to build up from the back. He likes the goalkeeper to almost become like an extra defender. His goalkeepers get plenty of touches on the ball. Mendy's distribution is probably his weakest area of his game. There's question marks there. Kepa obviously much better with his feet, but he perhaps doesn't command the box as well as Mendy, not as physical. There's pros and cons to both. I'll probably say Kepa suits Potter's style of play more, but at the same time, we're looking to win big trophies. I know we've won the Champions League with Mendy, but if we're looking at winning a Premier League or maybe winning the Champions League again, this is a position where we can definitely improve upon. And it might seem harsh, but in reality, Chelsea have made harsh decisions in the past. I mean, discarding Cech for Courtois. You know, that was a bold move given everything Cech had done for the club, but Chelsea bit the bullet, and it was the right decision ultimately in the end. And do you think, similarly, mate, we could find ourselves in a situation where we look at bringing a better goalkeeper, and we may have to sell, well, probably Kepa, but maybe may choose to move Mendy on as well. I mean, I don't think Mendy would be happy being a number two.
Yeah, and it is one of the problems with you know, signing for Chelsea, really, because we do tend to go through so many managers that these players can sometimes be 2-3 managers down the line before they've really had a decent season, and they're not their players anymore. So, you know, Potter comes in with new ideas, new style of play, and, you know, he has no I can't think of the word. Just, you know, he has no honour towards Mendy. He doesn't have to.
No, doesn't owe them anything. Yeah,
doesn't owe them anything. No, exactly. And you only have to look at the two sides that have won the league recently and the goalkeepers that they have. And even Ederson coming in for Hart was a bold statement from Pep Guardiola to start with. A lot of people
literally, that's a massive call as well said, mate. Pep just completely binned off Joe Hart straight away, got rid of him,
and people were turning their heads thinking that is a terrible decision. At the time, he was, you know, England number one, playing outstanding.
He did the same with Claudio Bravo as well. He brought in Bravo as a replacement for Joe Hart from Barcelona, who he knew from there. That didn't work out. Wasn't afraid to get rid of him either.
Yeah, Arsenal had problems in that area. You know, so, and again, you only have to look at the two goalkeepers of the Premier League winning sides lately. Ederson and Alisson, they've been they're the next level of goalkeeper. We've not seen it.
They're so good with their feet as well. You almost
they're
feel
an extra player, aren't they? They're an extra player.
They are an extra player, and that's what Potter likes to do. I mean, I don't really know off the top of my head what goalkeepers we could target, what are available. You look at the top goalkeepers around the world. Obviously, Jan Oblak, Donnarumma's a top keeper. Obviously, Ter Stegen is class, but he's going to be difficult to get Madrid, Barcelona, and whatnot. I mean, I think Donnarumma's a great keeper as well. Probably difficult to get him out of PSG. I look at someone like Mike Maignan at AC Milan. I think a very good goalkeeper, someone that potentially could be decent. But again, goalkeeper's hard to get right. There's very few top quality goalkeepers that actually make a difference. And I think nowadays, with the way the market is, you're going to look at you're like someone like an Oblak or something. You're looking at, again, I'd say more than £60 million. So it's goalkeeper is a massive, massive investment. But I think it's obvious that we do need to make inroads into the goalkeeping situation and potentially look to bring someone else in, because I just think what we've got at the moment, whilst it's good, I don't think it's good enough to win a Premier League. I just think there's too many mistakes in Mendy and Kepa over the course of a 38-game season that would end up costing us points that a better goalkeeper just wouldn't. But it remains to be seen what we do. Matt, I just want to quickly move on to the sporting director situation. Obviously, unfortunately turned down by a remarkable U-turn from Christoph Freund at Salzburg. Contract was all agreed, I think, last Sunday, not this Sunday, the Sunday before, I think. And then he had within 24 hours, had a U-turn and he decided to stay at Salzburg for reasons best known to himself. I mean, he's obviously perfectly entitled to do that. Simon Phillips saying today that, I think this was yesterday. Oh, it's today from Matt Laws. Chelsea will make new appointments in the medical department and are also in talks with individuals over sporting director and technical director roles, with Bayer Leverkusen's Tim Stuyton, one of those, holding meetings with the club. Before we get into sporting director, mate, Chelsea making a lot of changes. We've seen, all sorts of departments moving on. I thought this was a little bit bad taste from Todd Boehly. The geezer's name, Thierry Laurent, is believed to have been informed that he is no longer required by Chelsea on Tuesday afternoon after working at the club for 17 years. And he was told on a Zoom call. I mean, I think Boehly's done good stuff since he's come in. I'm not saying this is necessarily his fault, but it's a bit disrespectful, isn't it? It's a bit bad taste to someone that's been at the club for 17 years of service to just let him know by Zoom that no, you're not needed anymore.
It baffles me, mate, that people who are so successful in business, which Boehly clearly is, still people in that sort of, who are so knowledgeable in what they do, still operate in such ridiculous terms. Like, it's just common sense. A person who's dedicated 17 years of his craft and his expertise, working with players, going through managers. I mean, yeah, you're totally entitled to change it if you want to. That's absolutely fine. But there are just ways of doing it. Just on a human level, just bring them in, have a chat, say, look, we've got a new vision, we're moving forward. You're unfortunately not in our plans, but we're so thankful. Maybe a parting gift, like just things like that, just make all the difference in terms of how you are perceived and how you are as a human being. And it does sit really sour with me. Things like that. I hate.
Yeah, it's not right. Again, as you say, it's not about the fact that they decide to move him on. That's fine. No. You want to bring your own people in. That's not a problem. This goes on to say that the current plan is to try and appoint both a sporting director who would be largely responsible for recruitment and data, and a technical director to help manage Cobham, although that could change depending on how the interview process progresses. Chelsea also looking at looking to appoint internally as well. Neil Bath has been mentioned as a possible candidate for one of those roles. I think that would potentially make sense. But Tim Stuyton seems to be the favourite at the moment, by Leverkusen. I don't know an awful lot about him, but apparently he only took that post at Leverkusen this summer just gone. So he's not been in that job very long either. I think he appeals because of his kind of the way that he uses data and stuff. I think this Boehly Clear Lake administration is very data-driven. I think that's kind of the way that football's going now. But George, this is crucial to get this sorted as soon as possible. It's almost been a bit of a circus for Chelsea at the moment. We wanted to get Michael Edwards from Liverpool. He wanted time out of the game. Fine. We moved on. We thought we were getting Christoph Freund. He changed his mind at the last minute. We need this sorted as soon as possible, don't we?
Oh, yeah, 100%. not to be cliche, but it seems to be a bit of an American Moneyball approach going on here with trying to find someone who's got a new eye for data and a way of looking at things, which again, they're totally entitled to do. But, I think sometimes Boehly and the like need to probably realize that football isn't necessarily all about stats. And actually keeping that framework of people that have worked at the club for years and years can actually be very beneficial to just keep things calm in a time where Chelsea are under such stress and panic of so many things changing all around us, that actually keeping those people on the ground that have been there and done it and just keep the day-to-day running is so important. But these are two crucial roles that need to be fulfilled. But I wonder if it's because of Boehly's approach so far and his, the kind of bull in the china shop approach that is putting people off at the last minute, because I don't know why so many people are turning it down. I mean, we don't know those details, but interesting there.
It is. It's a fair point. I mean, I don't know what's going on really, but it needs to be sorted. We need the new department sorted. I mean, Jacob Steinberg in the Guardian reporting that part of Steiten's appeal to Chelsea is just focus on data. The new sporting director must work with Graham Potter's recruitment and analysis, Carl McCauley. McCauley's already made a strong impression at Chelsea. I mean, Chelsea obviously looking to get a director of football, but could also get a sporting director in as well. They could look to to kind of head up a new department along with Carl McCauley. As I said, looking at potential internal appointments as well, and Neil Bath would certainly be top of that list. He's done great work with the academy. I mean, do you think that would be smart of Chelsea to perhaps move Neil Bath up into a kind of a more senior position, a director of football or a sporting director? Or do you think, he's best served serving the academy like he has done so well? It's kind of a bit of a catch-22 situation because he's so good at what he's doing at the moment, but he could also be very good at being a director or a sporting director or director of football, whatever the role may be.
Yeah, this will be my last point. Sorry, guys, I'm going to have to leave everyone on the channel.
No worries, mate.
For me, I think Neil Bath needs to be offered the job. Again, for those things I've mentioned, for his service and the fact that he knows the club and to give him the opportunity if he wants it. Whether he does and whether he'd rather stick to his guns and he knows what he's good at, so maybe he'll turn it down. But I think it's fantastic to recruit internally and give those people who have dedicated their lives to, Chelsea Football Club and evolving. And I think they deserve an opportunity to at least be offered a position. And again, whether Neil Bath takes that is up to him. But, we talk about the bad things that Boehly does, but it's nice to probably hear that these whispers that maybe Neil Bath is a candidate. I think that's a really nice touch. And it's nothing to do with just because it's, they feel like they have to. I think Neil Bath deserves that opportunity. So, it's nice to be recognised for good work, and he's done an excellent job at Chelsea.
No, he certainly has. I know you've got to shoot now. Cheers for joining, mate.
Thank you, guys.
Catch up with you again soon, mate. Cheers.
Take it easy, guys.
Just get this from Sav here. Linked with Paul Mitchell as technical director. I think Paul Mitchell would be great to come in. I think he's done a really good job at Monaco. Obviously, did good work at Spurs previously with Maurizio Pochettino. I wouldn't be dead against Paul Mitchell coming in. I think that maybe more as a technical director, though. I mean, all these director things, I'm not really sure what they're all meaning. Sporting director, director of football, technical director. I don't know what the differences are within the roles, but I mean, I think if we could get maybe a Tim Steiten as a director of football, and then a Paul Mitchell as a sporting director or a technical director, I think that could work well. But I don't really know. It's one of those that, Chelsea needs to get this sorted soon. It has been a bit of a circus, with leaks to the press that it was almost done with the Christoph Freund, and then all of a sudden he's had a change of heart and he's changed his mind. We have been looking for a while now. It's important, obviously, not to rush it and to make sure that you get the right man in rather than just appointing someone for the sake of it. But at the same time, we do need to kind of get a move on. Boehly came in, obviously cleared it out with Czech, Marina, etc. Wants to bring his own people in, but we're now heading towards the January window very quickly, and work for the January window will be starting pretty soon if it's not already started. So it's important that we get these guys in as soon as possible. Obviously, with Carl McCauley coming in, with Graham Potter being the recruitment analyst, that makes it slightly less pressing perhaps than it would have been before. To get these people in, but we do need to get these guys in quickly. We need to, head up a new department, work on scouting targets, the way we identify players, the way we profile players, etc. Because that's something in the past that Chelsea have not been good at. The recruitment on the whole has been poor. Way too many signings not working out. And that model has got to change. That really has got to change. You wrote, instead of going for big names, go for perhaps slightly unproven, more up and coming players, and that might be a better route to go down. But yeah, for sure, it's definitely something that needs to improve. Let me just get back to this. Jude will go to Liverpool. We'll probably get Rice. I mean, Bellingham could go to Liverpool. I don't know if Liverpool have got the money to spend that much money on Bellingham, about how much it would cost, but I could definitely see him playing for Liverpool. They need to revamp their midfield as well, perhaps not as badly as we do, but they do need to make signings in midfield. So we'll have to see what happens. But as I said earlier, I think out of the two, we are definitely more likely to get Declan Rice than we are to get Jude Bellingham. I think Rice, there doesn't particularly seem to be that many other suitors. We seem to have a clear path to Declan Rice, whereas with Bellingham, Liverpool, Real Madrid, Man City, all the top clubs are going to be interested in him, so it's going to be a lot harder to do, and it will cost more money. How about Sporting Monchi? Monchi always gets kind of banded about his name. I don't dislike him. I think he's good at what he does, but I don't think he's someone that Chelsea would go for. I think he's a little bit more old school, whereas Chelsea are looking to go for kind of more of more down the data route, the data-driven analysis. That someone like a Tim Stuyton and Christoph Freund would have ticked plenty of boxes in that regard. But I'm not sure. I mean, the sooner it gets sorted, the better for sure. I mean, in terms of that, I mean, I don't know when that's going to be sorted, but hopefully that can be sorted soon. It's important we get it done, because you don't want this dragging on for too long. That's one thing that is very certain. Let me get to this. I missed this earlier as well. Big up, Nick. Thanks for tuning in. By the way, guys, please do smash the likes if you haven't done so already, and please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that either. If you're tuning in now and you're not subscribed, please do hit that subscribe button. I would really appreciate it. And we are heading towards 2,000 subscribers. So every subscriber helps. So if you're tuned in now and you're not subscribed, please do smash the subscribe button. Yep, we need to qualify for Champions League. Otherwise, we're not signing anyone of any substance. Yep, I think that's perfectly fair to say. I think it's absolutely vital that we do get in the top four this season. I don't think it's all doom and gloom. We're 5-6 points off the top, or it might be 8 because we played a game less than Arsenal. But to be honest, I think Arsenal will fall away. And other than Manchester City, there's no standout team at the moment. Arsenal have obviously started very well. Tottenham aren't all that. Neither are Liverpool at the moment. They're struggling. Man United, having got a bit of momentum together, they're not kind of all that either. I'm not saying that we're going to come second, but other than City, there is no standout team at the moment. So I think it's very much on that we could finish second. I'm not saying we will, but there's a chance. It's not totally out of the realms of possibility. As I say, there's no real standout teams other than City in the league at the moment. I know teams can get themselves together, but I think with Graham Potter coming in, there is a chance that we can still finish sort of second or third in the table. I think that would be good. That would be fairly decent with all things considered. But I do agree, we've got to Champions League football. Even if you're Chelsea, you've got to get that to attract the top caliber of player. I just think these days, it's too difficult to get top draw players in if you're not offering Champions League football. I mean, to be honest, we could drop into the Europa League as well. That's a distinct possibility. I don't know how likely that is. I mean, obviously we've got Milan next week, I think on Tuesday. We're going to need at least 4 points from the 2 Milan games. That's for certain. I don't think we can really afford to lose another game in the group. I think if we lose another game, we could be done. But it remains to be seen. But yeah, the point that Nick makes is that you're not going to. I do agree. If we don't finish in the top 4, we're not going to sign anyone of any substance. But I don't know. We'll just have to see how it goes. I mean, I'm excited for Graham Potter to come in. I mean, he's been appointed. He's been in charge a while now. I mean, it could even be, I don't think it's quite a month. What is it? The 28th. I don't think it's quite that long. But yeah, it's been tricky. We've had the postponements for obvious reasons. I mean, then we had the international break. He's had one game in charge. Yes, he would have had good time to work on the training pitch and stuff. But ultimately, with all the players being away, the majority of them being away with international duty, there's not really been an opportunity to work on too much. He can obviously get more familiar, more comfortable around the training ground, more comfortable in his role. But ultimately, it remains to be seen how we get on. And it's mad that it's going to be his first Premier League game on Saturday. I won't go into too much detail on that because I will be doing a match preview for that game on the weekend on Friday night. So I won't get too much into it. But yeah, top 4 is a must. And I think it's definitely more than doable with this Chelsea squad, with the players we've got. and the ideas that Potter's going to look to implement. But again, we've got to be patient. We have to be patient, because there's no point, getting all pissed off and stuff when things start going wrong, which they inevitably will. It's gonna be difficult, at times, and it might get worse before it gets better. We have to accept the fact that it could get a little bit worse before it gets better. But we've got to back the manager. This is a big investment from the owners, and we've got to stick by Graham Potter. And regardless of what happens this season, he needs to be in the job next season. Obviously, if we were to finish like 10th or 11th or something like that, then that might be slightly different. But even if we were, which I still think is a big if, to miss out on Champions League football, I still think he's got to be at the club, and we just got to ride out this transitional period, because we are going through a transitional phase at the moment. I think that's very clear. But yeah, I don't know what to expect from Chelsea, but I'm excited to see us back in action this weekend, because it has been far too long. It's been depressing watching England. It's been difficult, to say the least, and I'm just glad that Chelsea will be back. Hopefully, it will improve the mood. That does remain to be seen, though. I mean, guys in the chat, if anyone's got any questions they want to ask, any topics they want to chat about, then do let me know. And otherwise, I'll probably think about rounding it out in the next few minutes or so. I think pretty much covered most of the topics, really. I don't think there's an awful lot else to cover. I've done Bellingham, done Rice, done a goalkeeping situation, obviously sporting director and whatnot. So yeah, guys, if you've got any questions in the chat, then please do pop them in now, and we can discuss them. But if not, I will round out within the next couple of minutes. So yeah, please do let me know, team. I'll just have a quick look on Twitter, see if there's any other news doing the rounds. I think, yeah, that's looking like it's pretty much it, really. Yeah, okay, there's no questions, guys. I'm probably going to round it out here. Just thought I'd do a quick stream tonight. It's been a while, but the games are coming thick and fast in October, so there's plenty to look forward to, plenty of match previews, plenty of match reaction coming on the channel. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight, guys. Really appreciate it. Thanks for getting involved in the chat as well. Please remember to smash the likes if you haven't done so on your way out, and please do subscribe to the channel as well. And I will be back on Friday evening with a preview to Graham Potter's first Premier League game in charge against Crystal Palace. So Crystal Palace match preview coming on Friday night. So make sure you tune in for that. But guys, until then, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for getting involved in the chat. Smash the likes on the way out. Please subscribe to the channel as well on your way out. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and up the Chelsea.